Yeah, so I'm going to cover basically how I amended my medical records at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. So, I think it was months ago at this point, I did a video about many topics about the VA. I think it was one of the first ones I did in a really, really like years, a long time. And it talked about the White House hotline. It talked about basically, some bad people at the VA in general, different things. And I was in the process of looking to get a medical record amended. Well, I figured it out. It wasn't easy, of course, because the VA, not many things tend to be easy. There's problems, it's just really a big mess over there. So I did figure it out, and this is how I did it. So, for starters, I'll let you know that basically I had to ask a lot of questions. Nobody knew how to do what I needed. I had to really take it upon myself. And I contacted the privacy office at the big facility, the big VA, Alexandria, Louisiana Veterans Affairs Medical Center. And they after like it wasn't easy at all because they don't do anything digitally. They want a quote wet signature is what they call it. Yeah. Anyways, and which means you had to mail everything, snail mail back and forth between like me and the VA. So it took like 3,000 forevers essentially. I mean, it was like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks went by, and there was bad weather, and so the mail got messed up, and it was just like this huge mess. And so finally got the paperwork in, and there was a basic form that had like demographic information on it and like what you wanted changed basically. And of course, I always attach additional documentation for stuff like that because these form letters are never sufficient. And then it was amended, it was changed, and I'll show you what showed up on my records. So like after every single amendment, what I put on the screen, amended Privacy Act amendment filed and or 45 CFR part 164. So that's just a lot, isn't it? So I'm going to go ahead and show you this. So basically what I'm showing you right now is the hhs.gov website, which is the HIPAA website essentially. And so that regulation is referring to federal regulation, is referring to HIPAA. And if you Google amended dash Privacy Act amendment filed and or 45 CFR part 164, blah, 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 whatever, that's what will come up. That's like one of the top results is that website. And so it's this wonderful legalese, government ease, all this kind of stuff. That's what it is basically, what will show up. And so that is basically the rules that the VA and everybody and their mother is required to follow in healthcare, that where the amendment comes into play. So it worked for me. I'm satisfied with my outcome. I didn't have any problems with getting it done eventually, but it took a ton of energy and effort on my part. I was definitely the motivating force and the momentum behind it. You know, what I've learned is that when it comes to healthcare, but specifically, you know, this government healthcare, you really like, I just have always had to really advocate for myself because nobody else is going to do it. And certainly not at the VA. 99% of the time. Now there's been a couple exceptions through the years, so I'll be fair. And, but overall, it's just, I've learned I really have to advocate for myself typically. And this was just no exception. Is this pharmacy handbook situation. So one of my former videos, I basically talked about how the VA had creatively found a way to block veterans access to accessing the pharmacy for legitimate prescriptions. And this is how. So this VHA handbook, pharmacy handbook 1108.05 is how they're doing it, or trying to do it. You can see the full thing right there. All right, there it is. All right. And so basically they're trying to control the military veterans and the healthcare providers that prescribe anything or supply anything that would come through a pharmacy. And they're doing this by employing them or keeping them in the insurance network. And if they don't fall into that, and if the military veteran has gone to get a second opinion or wants to choose a healthcare provider outside of the insurance network or the VA for their whatever reason, then they're blocking the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs management is blocking access to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Pharmacy National is what's happening, is what's been told to me by the people at the VA, okay? And they're citing this VHA Pharmacy Handbook 1108.05 as their ground to stand on. And specifically, they're citing this one paragraph, which I feel like they're standing on quicksand with this. And it says all VANF medications. So I don't even know what the NF means. I'm not even going to pretend like I do. Medications and medical supplies must be provided to eligible veterans, which sounds reasonable. Eligible veterans, okay, got it. When a prescription is completed by a VA authorized provider. Okay, that doesn't sound like any big deal at first, right? Like, okay, fine, authorized provider who is licensed to practice their profession in a state, commonwealth, or territory of the United States, provided they follow established criteria for use and established prescribing guidelines. Sounds totally reasonable, right? Well, this is where the trick comes in. So basically, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Management is trying to say that they are not authorizing any healthcare providers to prescribe or provide anything through their pharmacy unless they're directly employed by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs or inside their insurance network, which means that they can control everything pretty much. And this is something I totally disagree with, because while this paragraph sounds totally reasonable, they have created it and are you trying to interpret it in such a way as to really block access successfully of U.S. military veterans that are eligible for U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs pharmacy and healthcare services, so that they cannot access the pharmacy unless the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is basically micromanaging, controlling everything, which, as I covered in my other video, and I've had multiple videos now where I'm basically complaining about the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs doing everything they can to limit the informed consent of military veterans. This is coming from their management, the way they shape things, structure things, policies, guidelines, with as far as, disapproving things they shouldn't be disapproving, trying to skirt certain laws. There's just a lot of things I've noticed that have been happening through my direct experience, through my observations, coming up in nearly 10 years of dealing with this organization. They just are not okay. And I'm going to call it like I see it, and I call it right out, because somebody needs to. I know I'm not the only one that's seeing this stuff, but I definitely am one of the only ones, if not the only one, calling it straight on out like it is and making a big deal out of it in hopes of creating some change here. So anyways, that is their whole talking point, basically, and that is it, is that paragraph K. Now, if you go to page 30 something at the very end, the pharmacist that did get back to me, to their credit, they didn't try to dodge me, because a number of managers at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs would. They try to cite these references as the law that they're standing upon. However, I'm not a lawyer, never been to law school, but I did look over this briefly, and I don't agree with what's being said with regard to how this justifies blocking access basically to the pharmacy. I strongly oppose it. I strongly oppose it so much that I filed my third congressional complaint now this year, this one having to do with this pharmacy business, trying to get the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to answer on the record about this. I also filed in their Office of Inspector General complaint, OIG. Let me put that up here. Yeah, complaint with the Veterans Affairs Organization about this, because I disagree with this. There was a survey. I talked about the survey on the other video I did, and I put in a abbreviated letter about this, as well as many other comments I had in that survey. And basically making it to where they can ignore me, but I'm going to make sure I keep putting this in their face every chance I get. The people that manage the survey, they're different than the people that, are going to see the OIG complaint. People who see the congressional complaint are different from the other people. And so no matter what, people are going to see this, and are also publicly advocating for change because somebody needs to do it. This is an interesting one. It's a news article from the Federal News Network. I read them sometimes, some of their stuff. This is an article. This type of article has come out before. This isn't the first time or the only article about it, but basically that I don't think it is. Basically, it's talking about whistleblower retaliation, which is a huge thing at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. The management there are known for not being the nicest. I actually went to the VA the other day at the Alexandria, Louisiana Veterans Affairs Medical Center. I actually had an excellent experience. But I thought it was really funny because the poster where they're talking about like different things, they still had the misspelling of the word available. And I covered this in a different video a number of months ago. And I just thought that was hilarious that they still haven't fixed that, because God forbid they fix it. You know what I mean? They also had another poster of workplace violence prevention, and it was really nice. The graphics were really good. However, it's like going to take a lot more than posting policies and posters on a wall to change a really toxic culture. And like the one way you can do it and start to change things is by terminating the employment of the people causing the problems. Okay. And also they have this broken civil service system, which has currently just been reinforced through legislation that has been passed, I think, or is about to be passed, to where the civil service system can't be removed and have an at-will employment system put into place. So basically, the broken system has been reinforced so that people can just stay there forever on the taxpayers' dime and management and like get away with whatever. I mean, it's so ludicrous. It's just funny. But it's sad because like the taxpayers are busy being robbed, you know what I mean? And it's very harmful to the military community, but it's like, let's double on down on that because that makes so much sense. But that's what's happening. So anyways, back to whistleblower retaliation. So I don't even know, there's an acronym. Oh, there it is. Office of Accountability and Whistleblower Protection, OAWP. My God, there are a lot of acronyms, but it's right here. Again, I'll say it. It is Office of Accountability and Whistleblower Protection, OAWP. So this office has like a really bad reputation ever since it started. Thank God I had already quit my job back in the winter of 2015. And this started sometime thereafter that. I think it may have been 2016 or 17. I can't quite remember. And then almost immediately got a bad reputation. Allegedly, there were it was somehow encouraging retaliation through ineffective management of whistleblower retaliation reports coming through the agency. And so if I understand this correctly, this is a whole interview, but what's supposed to be happening is they're basically wanting to put more resources into his office. And, you know, it's like this problem isn't as complicated as our government's choosing to make it. It's like, just fire the people that need to be fired and we could actually get somewhere. But that's not how they handle it. Instead, they keep basically throwing tons of cash, just so much cash at this problem. That's what's happening. And, you know, our country cannot keep affording this, basically. You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous. So they basically want to give lawyers to this office to help with preventing whistleblower retaliation or whatever. And they don't want, basically, let's see. My understanding is they don't want the VA's Office of General Counsel employees to join the whistleblower office because they don't want a revolving door in the agency where lawyers can go from this agency to this agency or this agency to this entity and have a conflict of interest. And they also said basically in the interview that they want the whistleblower office to have more of like the Office of Inspector General independence, because the Office of Inspector General is well known at this point for being very effective with dealing with the mismanagement and corruption in the VA. However, with that said, I'm sure the Office of Inspector General is super overworked and overburdened with complaints because the VA is just such a hot mess. All right, so I'm going to go into the next news article. This has to do with the VA's technology or lack thereof, however you want to put it. What's saying here is basically the technology, they mismanaged it. Shocker that the VA mismanaged something. But it's basically what it's saying. It's saying that the Office of Inspector General, once again, my favorite freaking VA department right here, the Office of Inspector General, did some kind of like, I don't know, audit or review or something, and found out that the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs initially underestimated the cost of their IT infrastructure by as much as $2.6 billion in some cases. I mean, oh my God, come on. I mean, and why is no one getting fired is what I want to know about this. You know what I mean? Like, it's wild, the stuff that they get away with at the VA. I mean, it's comical. It's embarrassing is what it is. Anyways, so the physical infrastructure is what they call it, upgrades needed to support its new electronic health record, EHR. They were trying to update electrical work, cabling, heating, ventilation, and cooling at its medical facilities to prepare for the Cerner Millennium Commercial Health Record. I've never heard of that before, so that's news to me. Yeah, so they severely mismanaged this project, shocker. And the department, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, also failed to report these infrastructure costs to Congress. So yeah, just poor communication, poor management, overspending. And you can find this article on the Federal News Network. IG Veterans Affairs may have overlooked cost of physical improvements needed for EHR. That is the title of it. So yeah, you feel free to look that up and check that out. But I will say I did visit the Alexandria Louisiana Veterans Affairs Medical Center recently. I found what I think is probably the best department in their entire facility. They got it going on over there. It seems very well managed, which is very shocking. They're not trying to violate anyone's informed consent rights, at least not mine. And, you know, they were really helpful. And actually the person who I think was the manager of the department actually educated me about some different things, which I had absolutely no earthly idea about because no one's freaking told me, but should have. And actually had a clue. Like the people in this department actually had a clue. And I was really shocked, and it was a really good experience. And so, yeah, that was really positive. They need to probably be put in charge of the rest of the building now, because there's another department in the same building, a few of them actually, that really need a serious overhaul. So anyway.